Hi dear friends, welcome to the CSS Learners Academy. Afghanistan is a country located on the northwestern border of Pakistan. Pakistan and Afghanistan shares a border of more than 2200 kilometers, which is known as Durand Line. Durand Line was demarcated in 1893 between the government of Afghanistan and the British. It was regarded as the international border between the Indian subcontinent and Afghanistan. Durand Line is contested by Afghanistan on the grounds that it is not a legitimate border, and it was created basically to divide the people of common faith, common language, common heritage, culture. But Pakistan lays their claim regarding Durand Line in line with the international laws, especially in line with the Government of India Act 1909, 1919, 1935 and the subsequent constitutions of Pakistan, the Constitution of 1956, 1962 and 1973. Pakistan believes that it might be a sentimental concept about Durand Line, that it has divided the people of same culture, but that is not legitimate under the international law. We have an example of divided Punjab here on the eastern side of Pakistan, and this happens in many countries of the world today. But it does not mean that there is no connection between the people of Afghanistan and people of Pakistan. Instead, we see that there is a deep-rooted connection. If we see towards the history of Pakistan, we study that the first of the foreigner Muslims which came to the Indian subcontinent were Arabs. When Muhammad bin Qasim came to an area which now is Pakistan in 712. But later on, what we study are the two more foreigners coming from the northwestern borders, from the provinces of Ghor and Ghazni. And if we look towards the contemporary history, we see that when migration movement was started in 1919, which I have explained in this lecture, the Muslims of the Indian subcontinent did not prefer to go to any country except Afghanistan. And it was reciprocated in 1979 when Afghanistan faced a devastating war. The people of Afghanistan migrated to Pakistan. And some of the historians have also mentioned the abbreviation of the name Pakistan, Pakistan. They have stated that the letter P represents Punjab, whereas A represents Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan was a separate country. How it could have been included in Pakistan, but as it was the belief of the Muslims that we are going to get a separate territory that would be for Muslims, for Afghanistan was included. And K represents Kashmir, S represents Sindh, whereas TAN represents Balochistan. So all of this was the connection, the people-to-people connection between Pakistan and Afghanistan. But as I was talking earlier about the issue of Durand Line, that became a bone of contention between two countries in the early ages. Right from the creation of Pakistan in 1947, we are facing different conflicts arising on the western border. It happened in 1948, 1949 and especially in 1950. When the militants actually crossed the borders into Pakistan, and they were obviously responded by the Pakistan army, and this actually turned out to be a very deadly conflict. But as Pakistan always believed in the policy of peace and harmony between the neighboring countries and especially in the region, therefore we tried to involve the Afghan government into a political dialogue which resulted in easing the tensions. The issue is not only about the Afghanistan government's claim about Durand Line, because they believe in the concept of Greater Afghanistan or Pashtunistan. But another important factor is that we are facing a hostile enemy at our eastern borders known as India. Now, the first war between India and Pakistan was erupted in the northeastern areas of Kashmir. Therefore, India has a policy of never letting any opportunity to dismantle Pakistan go away. Therefore, when they witnessed clashes erupting between Afghanistan and Pakistan on the western borders, we see that the partnership between India and Afghanistan grew even further. In the later years, we saw that there were several contracts between Pakistan and Afghanistan on development of the people, development of the masses, and we developed economic ties as well, and also worked together on controlling the cross-border movements between the both countries and control the smuggling. Afghan government was also against the US and the intentions of US in the region, as they were pro-Soviets, and therefore when Pakistan entered into a contract with United States in 1954, that was also contested in Afghanistan, and they protested the move. Then we see that the situation continued to be deteriorating in 1950s and 1960s. Even from the year 1961 to 1963, the diplomatic ties between the two countries were officially cut off. But later on, the situation was resolved in 1963, and both countries worked toward the betterment of relation. So the situation remained so until the year 1973. 1973 is the year when the last Shah of Afghanistan, the last Shah of the Rani dynasty, known as King Zahir Shah, was deposed and a government was established. The government of Dawood Khan was established in Afghanistan. This was the pro-Soviet government, therefore it was contested by the people. So we see the clashes erupting between people and the government. This was a kind of civil war which Afghanistan faced for almost 6 years. In all these 6 years, Pakistan always raised their voice for the people of Afghanistan, and Pakistan has always stated that the final solution of the problem, of the political problems of the country, should be with the will of the people. The situation was continuously escalating, and ultimately Dawood Khan was assassinated in 1978. Now, that was a turn of events. Finding the Afghan crisis as a golden opportunity, United States decided to play a role. As in the words of the Secretary of State Brzezinski, that let us give Soviet Union their Vietnam War. So the intentions of the Americans were pretty clear. They wanted to play a very productive role or destructive role in the Afghan crisis. Thus, a strategy was designed which was known as Operation Cyclone. Operation Cyclone was basically focused on involving the proxies inside Afghanistan, because the US forces were not intended to directly involve themselves in Afghanistan, as the situation which was going on in the Eastern Europe and in the Central Asia was more important for US at that time. So it was decided that there should be a proxy war. Let me make another important point here, that you must have heard everywhere about the 1979 Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. It was not an invasion. The Soviet forces were invited by the Afghan government. So we cannot call it as an invasion of the Soviet Union. It happened in the case of Syria in 2015, when the Soviet government, being an ally of Russia, they called the Russians for their help. The same thing happened in 1979 when Afghan government called Russians for their help. Pakistan, as an ally of United States, was taken into confidence with the huge promises of massive economic support and several other defense-related agreements. Pakistan had already stood with the people of Afghanistan, and the country was already against the Soviet-imposed rule on the people. Therefore, Pakistan agreed to help United States to stand with the people of the country. The intelligence agencies of both countries were working on the same agenda, but their motives were entirely different from each other. For US, it was an opportunity to give Soviets their Vietnam War, whereas for Pakistan, it was an opportunity to stand with the people to get them liberated from the foreign rule. Now, a common factor for every proxy war is that we need an ideology to keep that war intact. Therefore, the ideology thus chosen for this proxy war was Islam. This policy of choosing this ideology was a kind of a threefold strategy. Why? Number one was that people can be manipulated easily and they would die willingly in the name of religion. Number second is that Saudi Arabia will be chosen as a partner who contains the largest reserves of oil in the region, as well as the Holy Kaaba, which is respected by all Muslims all around the world. And number third is that US Saudi Pakistan nexus will be made so strong that they may revenge Iran later because of the revolution of 1979, which shocked the United States. So that was a kind of threefold policy being prepared in 1979, and the operation was started in December 1979 against the Soviet troops. Camps were established along the border, militants were prepared, they were given arms and ammunition, the latest US manufactured arms, and they were sent to the battlefield in Afghanistan. Now there were a total number of 6 different organizations, the militant organizations who were fighting the war. If we divide Afghanistan into 2 parts, one of them it would be the northern Afghanistan and other one is the southern Afghanistan. The southern militants were the militants of Al-Qaeda, which later on became Taliban, whereas in the north it was acquired by the Northern Alliance. The leader of Northern Alliance was Ahmad Shah Massoud, or he was also known as the Sher-e Panjshir, because there is an area of Panjshir where he was living in the province of Nangarhar. Nangarhar province was the headquarters of the Northern Alliance. It is believed that Northern Alliance was being helped by Iran and Central Asian states and Soviet Union as well, while the ethnicities of the Southern Alliance, they were directly helped by CIA and ISI joint operations being funded by Saudi Arabia. The important figures of the Southern militants were Abdul Haq, Deen Muhammad and Gulbuddin Hikmatyar. The war continued for almost 8 years, with the last soldier of Soviet Union leaving Afghanistan in February 1989. As Soviet troops left Afghanistan, so did the United States. Now, that was a catastrophe which was being faced by Pakistan. The militants who were supported by United States with the hefty payments and arms and ammunitions were now battle hardened, and they were even more skilled with the wartime tactics. Means that a war for power was inevitable in Afghanistan. Now Pakistan was also put under a burden which Pakistan was not ready to bear. Throughout the war, several camps were installed on the border, on the both sides of the border, and now Pakistan had to deal with these militants. So a culture of lawlessness and smuggling in ex-Fata was one of the fruits of this proxy war. Now the relationship between the government of Afghanistan and Pakistan was more conflicting, was kind of a conflicting nature, because they believed that Pakistan was helping the Afghan militants directly. As United States was out of the war, so Pakistan was going to handle the situation on its own. Pakistan was also forced into some internal disturbances after the year 1988. Following decade from 1988 to 1998 is known as the 10 years of democratic experiences. So Pakistan was not only facing the internal pressure but also on the external borders, especially with Afghanistan. Following the years 1988, 1999, 1990, Taliban were growing in their power. As I have talked earlier, that the battle hardened warlords of Afghanistan, having the latest American weapons, were now ready to take revenge from the Northern Alliance. So we see the growing influence of Taliban, their acceptance by the public as well, and their atrocities against the people who would stand against their rules. They were capturing the cities one by one and finally captured Kabul in 1996. 1996 is the year when Taliban announced their government on Afghanistan. They announced that they have taken control of all of the country and now Sharia law will be imposed. The official name of Afghanistan was changed to the Emirates of Afghanistan. But in the following years, 1997, we see that when Taliban tried to capture Mazar-e-Sharif, which is the third most important city of Afghanistan, they were failed. Therefore, another assault on the capturing of Mazar-e-Sharif happened in the year 1998. Now, why Mazar-e-Sharif is now so important? Mazar-e-Sharif is the northern city of Afghanistan, and most of the inhabitants of this area are the Shia Hazaras, the Tajiks, and the Uzbek people. All of those who opposed Taliban in the previous years. Therefore, Taliban were ready to take revenge from those people, and the assault in 1998 resulted in the success of Taliban. After capturing the city, Taliban started a house-to-house research, and they killed all the people of Hazara community, Tajik community, and the Uzbek community. Why Mazar-e-Sharif is important for the people of Afghanistan? Because some of the people of Hazara community believe that Imam Ali alayhi salam is buried in Mazar-e-Sharif. He is not buried in Najaf-e-Ashraf, Iraq, but buried here in Mazar-e-Sharif. So you can imagine what kind of an importance this city contains in the eyes of the common people. So when Mazar-e-Sharif was attacked, the Iranian consulate was attacked, the diplomats were captured, and several other officials were killed. The Iranian government announced that they are going to attack Afghanistan. On 3rd September 1998, round about 70,000 Iranian troops were mobilized along the border between Iran and Afghanistan. Iran stated that they are going to take revenge from Taliban. The forces were continuously gathering there, and according to the statistics, the army grew from 70,000 to 200,000 until the 20th of September. Not only the troops were there, but round about 150 tanks and missiles were also installed on the border areas. It means that Iran was ready to attack Afghanistan. Several talks were held, as Taliban were not able to repel to a regular forces of a country, because if Iran goes towards attacking Taliban, Iran will not be going alone. The Russians would be ready to help because of their defeat that they faced in 10 years ago, and India was also ready to help Iran because of their hostility with Pakistan. So the situation in 1998-1999 was escalating, and it was obvious that if Iran is successful in this attack, Americans are going to lose Afghanistan forever. And losing Afghanistan means that they lose their chance for a country from where they can contain Iran, China, and Russia as well. So the policy of containment of United States was also jeopardizing. And then we see a very famous incident happened, which is known as 9/11. And after that, America suddenly announces that we are going to attack Afghanistan, regardless of the fact that the passports being found in the aftermath of that attack, all of them were related to Saudi Arabia. Nonetheless, United States decided that we are going to attack Afghanistan, and President George W. Bush named this as the Global War on Terrorism, GWOT. The Global War on Terrorism initiated in the year 2001 from the country Afghanistan. Pakistan was asked that Pakistan should help Americans in this global war on terrorism. Pakistan was not asked, Pakistan was forced. As described by General Pervez Musharraf in his book In the Line of Fire, the Secretary of the State of United States, Richard Armitage, stated that we are going to bomb Pakistan to the Stone Age if you don't agree. They gave us a document containing requirements that would be there. Pakistan amended those and sent the letters back to United States, and finally it was decided that Pakistan is ready to help United States to curb terrorism all around the world, whether it is in Afghanistan or any other country of the world. So obviously this kind of behavior, this kind of response from Pakistan was contested by Afghanistan, that Pakistan is the country which allowed their routes to be used by United States against their neighboring country Afghanistan. So this was a kind of contention that arose once again with the US initiative. The war was there. The government of Taliban was toppled in 2001. Afghanistan was provided with a new constitution in the year 2004, and then the war continues until they reached an agreement just recently. So here we see that the relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan have always remained on the mercy of the foreign powers, whether it is India or United States or Iran or Russia. The other countries are always playing an important role in the territory of Afghanistan. This is resulting in the deterioration of the relationship between the two countries. However, one thing is pretty clear, that Pakistan has always stood with the people of Afghanistan, and they are standing even today. Regardless of the economic condition of Pakistan in the year 1980, 85, 90, 95, Pakistan is continuously inviting the migrants from Afghanistan. Some of them are being given nationality, some of them are having business in Pakistan, and they are continuously accommodated. So regarding the global war on terrorism, Pakistan was always of the view that this issue cannot be resolved by involving in a war. That is a thing which can be discussed diplomatically, and we can find some kind of a political solution to this issue. But the war hysteria in United States is what is mentioned by the statement of Richard Armitage, that they were not going to think about any other option but to attack Afghanistan. A lot of precious lives were lost in this war, and after 20 years of this war, Americans have reached the same conclusion which Pakistan was telling them 20 years ago. This is what I have mentioned in the first lecture of current affairs. So ultimately, now Americans have reached to the same conclusion, that the peace is only option between Taliban and United States. In last year, when the session of United Nations were being held, on the sidelines of the session, President Donald Trump asked Prime Minister Imran Khan to play the role of a mediator between US and Taliban. So Pakistan was once again given a responsibility to let United States find out a way to get out of Afghanistan finally. Pakistan helped United States and Afghanistan both for the safety, security and peace of this region. And finally, it is a great achievement that a peace deal has been signed in this month. And the United States have agreed to minimize their troops, as the 5,400 troops will be out of in the next 135 days. Whereas Taliban have agreed that they will not host the forces which may be harmful for the US interests in the region. That is a kind of deal which is being appreciated all around the world, and this will ultimately bring peace to the region. Although we have seen such kind of a deal being reached in the February as well, but later on that deal was sabotaged. But we hope that as the ambassador from United States to the deal, Zalmi Khalilzad, have agreed to the terms and conditions, and he has stated that he will get the consent of the President of United States finally. We hope that he might be successful, because this is the only solution to the Afghan problem. After the government of Taliban was over, Pakistan had made several contracts with the new government, as we know about the Afghan-Pakistan Transit Trade Agreement. It was signed in July 2010, and this agreement paves the way for the construction of a railway line inside Afghanistan, which will be connected to Pakistan finally, and so that both countries could use that for their strengthening of their economic and strategic ties. The APTTA also allows Afghan truck to drive inside Pakistan to the Wagah border with India, including the port cities of Karachi and Gwadar. In July 2012, Afghanistan and Pakistan agreed to extend APTTA to Tajikistan as well. And then we have an agreement of a gas pipeline which is known as TAPI, including Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan and India. And before we conclude the lecture, another important dimension of this relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan is the concept of strategic depth. You must have heard about the terminology. Let me explain it to you. Strategic depth is basically a concept which says that if we see the eastern and western border of Pakistan has a kind of slim territory between the eastern and western borders. So in case of an attack from India, Pakistani forces can go back to Afghanistan to mobilize once again and then to come back and to attack India. Now it is believed, it is propagated mostly by the Indian journalists, that this was a concept that Pakistan was thinking to go into Afghanistan, to use the territory of another country and then to attack back to India, and it is resented by Afghanistan. Now I say that Pakistan became a nuclear power in the year 1998. After the year 1998, Pakistan has the nuclear capability of dealing with any kind of threat, whether from the eastern or western border. So this is a kind of concept which is not required by Pakistani military, that they would go into another country and then to come back to attack a country on their eastern borders. So this concept of strategic depth, whether it was a narrative of Pakistan army or not, but now I can say it very clearly that Pakistan army do not need any kind of strategic depth, and we are looking towards Afghanistan as a brotherly country which should be the people of Afghanistan should have peace and stability finally. And now we will conclude our lecture with the recent developments happening in the region. Currently, the players involved in the issue of Afghanistan are Russia, China, Iran, India, Pakistan and United States. These 6 countries are playing a role inside Afghanistan and are looking towards the future. In all these countries, as I have talked about the 2 blocks earlier in many of the lectures, we see that the one block is Pakistan, China, Iran and Russia, whereas India and United States are on the other block. Now, why India is even more isolated in Afghanistan today? Because United States itself has agreed to bring an end to the Afghan war, because this war is going to consume more resources of United States and it is not going to be beneficial for the country. Moreover, American elections are going to held in the next month. Therefore, President Donald Trump is trying to manage his popularity, which he has lost immensely. Because as I believe, President Donald Trump has been disastrous to the United States of America more than any other president. So it is a time for him to gain popularity by mediating between UAE or Israel deal or Israel or Bahrain deal or getting out of Afghanistan. So this is the first priority of United States. But what about India? India, who was there in Afghanistan on the behest of United States, has now no other country to support them. Therefore, all of the Indian efforts to sabotage the peace deals between Taliban and United States have failed, and we hope that they remain failed because they will try again and again to sabotage the deal. So I think that now the negative role played by India in the previous years is cannot be played any further, and finally Afghanistan solution is going to be resolved. Finally, the hopes of many Pakistanis and other people inside the region are going to be fulfilled, thanks to the timely strategies of Pakistan, thanks to their role in the mediation and bringing this peace agreement to its success. Thank you very much for watching the video. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.